G'day and welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. First of all, so there's no confusion, can't buy this rifle like this. There's no CZ45 MDT at the moment. This is a CZ455 synthetic, or the Varmint synthetic, and I've put it in a MDT ACC chassis with my NightForce scope on the top of it, or one of my NightForce scopes on the top of it. I'll go through the rest of the build at the moment, but I wanted to say that to start off with so there's no confusion about that. This rifle, as said, started as a CZ455 Varmint, which means it's got a 22-inch barrel. It comes with this little muzzle brake on the front of it. They're a bull barrel. There's a 1/2 inch by 20 UNF thread on the front here, which has this on it. And other than that, all the bolts, it comes with a 5-round magazine. That's a 10-round magazine there. That's how it came. And then I have from the guys at MDT, they've built up this chassis, which is along the lines of what it's to do is for the guys who want to train in PRS and they want to train the philosophy. What they're working with there is guys who have this chassis set up with all the bits and pieces, from the echo rail to the weighting system. You can run weights on the front of these things to set it up in weights and that sort of stuff. Fully adjustable buttstock, all the bits and pieces on a PRS rifle, or rather than training with a PRS rifle, they can learn muscle memory, do a lot of shooting, cheap way to do it in close, in smaller ranges and that sort of stuff with a 22. But like I said, same muscle memory, so they can use exactly the same platform, set it all up and go and shoot. You can even take your scope off your PRS, put it on this, so that everything from your scope picture to your cheek weld to your hand grip to everything is very much the same and very cheap. Great practice and a way of doing it. The other place which I see, and I suppose we'll go into what I'm really on about, what I'm really putting forward here. What I see, there's a couple of things that I think this sort of system will work with, and I suppose I'd go into that. The 22 long rifle, and actually shooting the 22 long rifle, great fun with different systems. We have our little target system we have done a lot of testing with, and it's really brought back home in doing that how good that is for not just fun and bringing other people into the sport, that side of things, whether it's family or friends and that sort of stuff, how much fun you can have without needing you still need to be safe in your backstop and that sort of stuff, but it's nothing like shooting a centre fire. So nice and simple, nice and quiet, cheap to do, great fun, great training. So really helps in the way of follow through, in the way of trigger, in the whole form, the whole shooting process. It does a lot of training in that side of things and whatever form of shooting you're doing. The other side of things which that's brought about, the more I look at it, the more I'm paying attention again to the 22. I've just used them over the years for varmint hunting, for getting rid of pests, that side of things is what I do a lot with the 22 with, and we've done a little bit of extending out at silly long ranges and showing what they can do in that form. But other than that, I haven't paid too much attention. What has been in the periphery is the mini PRS, or the 22 long rifle PRS competitions, which I've seen over in America a little bit. I think they're a little bit all over the world and growing. And like I said, it's put us doing a lot of shooting with our little target and testing that side of things and finding how much that benefited Sam, my spotter, really benefit her in the way of being more familiar with having more trigger time, made her get onto the big ones easier, made it more familiar for her. It's fun, it's a fun pastime. But it really went into, okay, I think there's a fair bit of the sport that can grow. I think that's a really good idea for a lot of the people that watch our channel, and probably a little bit live vicariously through what we do with long range shooting and different firearms we shoot, and the area we have, the lucky position we're in, where we have close to us stuff that we can go and shoot long range with the time and the partnership between the pair of us and the life we have to be able to go and shoot out at long range. There's people who would like to, but they don't live in that place. They live in, whether it's most people obviously live in cities. It's the way our world is set up. So their shooting ranges are small shooting ranges in the suburban areas or just on the edges of town, which is that they can get to. So in a lot of the world, a 200 yard or 200 metre range is about as long as it's going to be. Or they live out in the bush, out in the country, but it's hilly, mountainous, forests, that sort of stuff, and 50 to 200 yards is once again what they're playing with. And so for them, actually shooting PRS, where you need acres of clear land, is, although conceivable, it's long journeys and long trips to go and do that, or just to shoot in the, whether it's the ELR that we do, or it's just long range shooting, precision shooting. It's really hard to do and to justify. This idea here, in the way of, now I've obviously gone and gone the whole hog here, and I'll go back into that in a little minute, but just with a 22 long rifle, just with a hunting scope on it and going out and playing, still lots and lots of fun. And it's certainly where I did most of that stuff in the early days, and when we've gone back to it, a little 3x9 hunting scope and be able to shoot at whether it's 50 yards or at 300 yards, done all that with that sort of scope on these. It's an enormous amount of fun to actually go and do that. And I suppose the other thing I would say is I see, and from people I talk to, from people I know that have been target shooting with centerfire rifles, with big rifles, and done that all their lives, a lot of those guys come back to shooting with the 22 long rifle once again. Shooting at 50 yards and 100 yards in competition, shooting paper. Not my thing, but there's a lot of understanding. There's a lot of being able to read wind. There's a lot of all your form, all your bits and pieces, your rifle setup, all still very relevant. So what I'm saying is, I think there's a real place where people can go and, whether it's just get a 22 that they've got in the cupboard they hardly use, or it's go and buy something like where this started off and go out and use that in a basic form, or the guys who want to build themselves a precision rifle but really need a way to justify that. They're not going to be able to go and shoot centerfire. They don't have the ability to and the time or the location to be able to get out to those things. You can actually still go and build something really thoroughly and build a really great looking rifle with lots of bits and pieces. You can spend lots of money or a little bit of money, but you can build a rifle that does all those things, that has all that same sport in that same ability needed, skill needed to be learned, and you can still, as I like to do, you can acquire the big bits and pieces to go into that, and even though it's only a little rifle. So that's sort of a little bit of the philosophy. It's to try and encourage people to grow in our sport. It's to try and give more trigger time to the people already in our sport. It's ways of doing things, which I'm sure a lot of people are onto already, but that's a little bit of where I'm coming from here. So let's go through this rifle here. I have a CZ already. I have a CZ 452 that is 15 years old or 12 years old or something like that. It's been, we've used it a lot, we've shot it a lot. Like I said, largely it has done from shooting pests to hunting for in the way of varmints to all sorts of that side of things is what it's done. Had with torches on it, with night lights on it, with bits and pieces on it. Most of it's nighttime sort of stuff, but done a lot of that side of things. Awesome. Until recently, we started to build our little target system and did a lot of testing that. Got 10,000 rounds, and we're going for more on the target, testing it properly, and really that reiterated how good it is to actually do, how good it is to use. So like I said, I have this philosophy of all this that raised the awareness in us to listen, maybe should do a little bit more of that. With that then came the idea of, okay, we should do some basic reviews on rifles, on which we want to do more of this year, which we are. We've got some coming to us, but what that's also going to be is on some 22 long rifles in basic forms and more advanced forms. So there's some of those coming. This to start off with is, as I said, it's the little Varmint rifle, which to be honest, it's not really set up like a varmint rifle in my opinion. It's set up much more like a stock on a barreled action, because it has the heavy bull barrel, it has a little muzzle brake, so a little bit of, I don't think that's doing very much with a 22 by any means, but it looks a bit, I suppose, tactical, as they like to say. And it is all that a CZ is. It shoots super accurately. We set it up and shot it with just a little 3x9 on the top of it, and just ran 20 or 30 rounds through it, making sure it was all good and shooting nicely. I've then done a little tiny bit of work with the trigger. I pulled my trigger weight down a little bit because I don't really like it. Started at a 3.5 pound trigger, which is fine for hunting, works fine. I'm very used to, both of us are very used to a lot of triggers. So a little tiny bit of work there and got that down to like 1 pound, just 1.75 pounds or 1 pound 10 ounces. So is what I got that down to. Very simple little job. And put it in this stock, which the guys at, like I said, at MDT sent us to do some testing and to show off. So that's what we're with doing that. Had my bag right on the back of it. To be honest, haven't even shot it on a bag at the moment. No doubt we will do in places. Not a big deal with the 22 and the way we shoot, but it was really about putting forward setting it up as your full PRS rifle. And I have equally, not needed, but it's the way I have it set up. It has the ACAR rail on the bottom here. And what I've done is put on this great big Atlas 5H bipod on the front here. An overkill in some fashions. Once again, if you're doing it the same as you're doing it for your PRS, and whatever you're running in there, you'd be running on here. And on the top, I have my floating scope, which I use on all things. When I say floating, it runs on lots of different rifles. Is my NightForce ATACR, as people like to say it. A vortex bubble level on it. On the ERA-TAC rail on the bottom here, which let me set this up so that I've actually canted this up 60 MOA, so then I have a full 120 minutes of elevation in my scope. It's zeroed at basically at 50 yards for this one. So all that being said, how's it come together? I should show you. It is a little bit funny looking because it is the full open rail or full open magazine box. It's actually set up where you can still get in there. You can neatly get your finger in the front here to be able to drop that out the bottom. So it's probably not quite as simple as going to the side as you can on a normal stock, but it's still quite functional, and it's really designed around whether that's a tactical piece or that's simply the ergonomics of it from where your barricade stop. All those bits and pieces are the same in the way of using it as a clone to your centerfire PRS rifle. So that's what we got. We shot it with. We're shooting it with the. We will go and take this out and do some mini ELR. I'm not going to use this to try and go to the silly distances, but we'll go through and do some shooting at the 50 yards, the 100 yards, the 200 yards, 300 yards, and we'll see where this works in 120 minutes and take it out there and do a little bit of that sort of stuff and show what people can do. That's what we're going to do on this one. We're also going to go forward with, like I said, we've got some other rifles coming, from the Savage to a Lithgow to, we'll see what we can get in the way of Winchester and bits and pieces, but we'll see what we can get in to actually go through and do mini reviews on all these rifles in various forms. We'll see if we can get some of the ones where you can simply buy off the shelf, and we'll show some of the mods you can get to go with that. I should say a piece I haven't mentioned, which you can probably do better than I've done, but I just used a little set of Wolf adapters, which are air rifle adapters, to go from the little 11mm rail you have on the top of the CZ to take it out to where I have a full size, like a 21mm picatinny rail, to be able to bolt this on the top. So this scope comes off and goes under things. So anyway, listen, I should say the bit we've done, we actually just took it out. We've only just put it all together. We took it out and ran 100 rounds through it, which is a fairly quick thing to do. A couple of boxes of 22 ammo. Shoots like you can imagine. And I'll show some more, and we'll actually do a video of actually it shooting. But it shot as well, if not better, than the old 4.52, which shoots beautifully. We're shooting 1/4 inch targets. Well, with our little rail, which we're testing on, our little FTC target, we shot with, which is a 2.5 inch gong down to a 1/4 inch gong at 50 yards, and both of us very quickly were able to run through and do 10 hits, so hit that 1/4 inch 4 or 5 times for the pair of us. So shoots like you'd expect for a little bull barrel and a CZ. Anyway, listen, that's the concept, that's the thoughts. Let us know any thoughts you got on that. If there's particular ones you want to see, we will talk to manufacturers and see what we can get in. We'll do a proper review on this rifle and what we're shooting. And I suppose the other bits I would say with this is, listen, it's now reasonably heavy. I'll put a weight down there as to what it weighs in a basic form. You would, if you were training to go with your PRS, I would be thinking you'd weight it right up to what you shoot your PRS rifle with, which would make it a lump for a 22. But in the way of building up that muscle memory, being used to and being able to go out and move around, wriggle around and shoot it in different formats, you haven't got the same recoil, obviously, but in the way of your building strength to be able to do the different positions you're going to shoot with, that sort of stuff, I think it'd be very valuable in that score. It is still reasonably heavy for what it is for a 22 anyway, but that, like in most cases, that actually helped. It just made that there was, although there's a little bit more work in the way of manoeuvring things, the 22 is very light generally and it's very easy to get into positions, like I said, not normally shooting off a bag. A little bit heavier, but that actually worked in the way of stability. Shot really well. Really great little thing. As said, for us in Western Australia, at this moment at least, suppressors are not something that we can run, or moderators or cans, whatever you want to call them on the front. They're not something that we can use legally at the moment as half of the world. For the world that does have the ability to run them, then they're set up for that. Like I said, it's 1/2 inch by 20 pitch thread on the front here, so putting on a little suppressor on there and having a super quiet thing to be able to shoot with the standard velocity ammo, so your 1050 or 1070 ammo, a little can on the front there, and being able to shoot in the neighbour's block with as long as you've got safe backdrop and that sort of stuff, to where you can plink away without causing too much harassment of the neighbours. Super great little systems to be able to do that sort of stuff. For the guys who want to do that in non-suppressor places, you have the quiet ammo. CCI do some stuff, but you have some stuff, it's down in the 750, so a lot more drop and that sort of stuff. But for your close range stuff, there's no sonic crack. It is pretty quiet ammo, so you can use that sort of stuff as well for the people who don't have the ability to run a can on the front of it. Anyway, that's an overview of it. It certainly is one sexy, whatever you want to call it. It's one tough looking rifle, and for the guys who just want that really flash looking thing in the cupboard but want to be able to use it, that's an option for them too. There is, I should say on that score, the scope I got sitting on top, like I said, the logic actually is in the PRS using the same gear. There's another 2 logics I see to go with that. When I was actually shooting at the 1/4 inch target at 50 yards, it's a place where using some power in your scope really works. And I find going up as much as 30 power really is a nice thing to do. So at the moment I just have this, this is the 5x25 in the ATACR. I really probably will set it up with the 7x35 ATACR for the ultimate place I can take it to. So that is what I'm saying, is that even though I shoot at 15 power out at 3,000 yards, and I really do, I find I like that field of view. I want to out there, it gives me some more ease in getting onto it. You can wind up, it's no problems in shooting at more power, but I tend to find that I'm shooting down at lower settings. Quite the opposite, shooting in really close. When I'm really close, trying to shoot that really small target and trying to see everything, and especially see the misses, see your little nicks and that sort of stuff, see everything really clearly. Even at 50 yards, 30 power is not a terrible place to use it. Or that, and that depends on what you're shooting and that sort of stuff. But in actual fact, having a fair bit of power on the other rifle I did all that on, that was just a little El Cheapo, $120, $200 Chinese scope I was doing it with, which works fine for there. In saying that, I looked through something like this, a lot more expensive quality scope. Well, there is some real benefits to go with it. So there is a logic to go with shooting at close range when the likes of a full PRS level, top level scope, tier 1 scope, tier 2 scope, has some logic to it there. It also has a logic to the fact that I want that really flash thing. I want those bits and I want to be able to use them. There is a logic to it. But You could stay all right down in the budget side of things. I have with my other CZ, and whether all of the budget rifles, you know, probably the Savage, I think, is probably the one that comes in at the cheapest, best bang for your buck type of thing, which we're going to get one across and do a review with that as well. But you probably could use one of those with the $120 scope and still be competitive. I think you'll find in the PRS, from what I understand, there is your basic factory setup that you can use, and then there's levels of where you can go, which then puts you in other competition. And there are definitely 22 rifles and scopes and combinations where people have spent $10,000 or even more in a 22 rifle, which are competition people with do that sort of stuff, which that's largely bench rest, I know those sort of prices, but I've no doubt you find that in the PRS world as well. And each to his own. That's how you want to do and what you want to roll with. The last bit I'll say on the prices side of things is I'll stay clear of it for the same reason I normally do. The prices in Australia are completely different to the price in America. That's a little bit about the difference in our dollar value, but it's also marketing, all those bits and pieces. And what might be cheaper in America might be more expensive in Europe. I don't know. All over the world is different. Type of thing to look up. I'll put on some bits and pieces of what the products are, and you can check out what they are in your world, but I'll stay away from it because it does cause a bit of confusion. So overall, I really like the combination here. From the bull barrel in the setup in the CZ, they work really well. Easy for me to go here, and where I started simply because I've got half a dozen 10-round magazines, so I didn't have to buy anything more to start the play on that sort of stuff. When I thought about this process, I went and spoke to MDT. What do they have there in the way of things you could tool up with and that sort of stuff? They had this. They had the choice of stocks or choice of chassis. I went with the 455, 457 stock or chassis because I knew this combination of work and I wanted to start afresh. The little bull barrel really attracted me, especially a little bit because it's the target side of things we're trying to do with it, a little bit because of more the rest of the world and the way of running a can on it for what you can do in the way of keeping it quiet in the not too far out of town sort of stuff. You want to go and play with this sort of thing, set up your little targets and that sort of stuff, then there's some real benefits to go with that. And like I said, in the PRS logic of being able to tie the two things together. Other than that, the trigger modifications that I do, it's a simple little thing on the spring there. That is really, if you're leaving it hunting and as a hunter, then the 3 pounds is a nice safe place, far less likely to accidentally squeeze too hard on the trigger. I still like the trigger, it's nice and clean, that sort of stuff. I like bringing them down because of the amount of target shooting that I do with 1 pound triggers, you know, generally just under or just over 1 pound. I've left this at 1 pound 10 ounces. It still feels close enough to be very much a duplicate of that, or to very much mirrors what we normally do. The little bolt, putting a bigger bolt hand on that sort of stuff, yes, you could do it. Once again, something I'm very familiar with, 1 pound 22 stuff, but you're probably putting a larger bolt on there to get a little bit more of an action, a little bit more. It's a very different grip between one of the others, but stuff you could do on that sort of stuff. This side of things in setting up the scope where I've got it, certainly for your normal 50 to probably 150 yards as far as you'd normally take your 22, and in your normal stuff you don't need any of this sort of setup here. This is how I float because it runs on a normal rifle where I've got set up with a normal centerfires where I've got set up on a 60 MOA base, which is normally what I try and get. Then this little combination gives me almost 200 minutes of elevation. On this little fella, it's only going to give me 120 minutes of elevation, 120, 130 minutes of elevation, which is still heaps for what all the normal mini ELR stuff that we plan to do with it. Anyway, that's an overview. I hope that makes some sense. Like I said, we've got a fair few more 22s to come with. If you've got suggestions or thoughts, then certainly drop them in the comments below. And other than that, yeah, thanks for checking in on us. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll catch you next time.
Hi guys, Sam here. For folks that are interested in our products that you will have seen in our videos, these are all products that Mark has designed through our experience in ELR shooting. We manufacture them here ourselves. the likes of our adjustable bag bases, bag riders, bipod systems, muzzle brakes, shot data recording sets, and even our great fun little 22 long rifle target. These are all available in our web store, the links to which are below this video, along with our contact information. And guys, we work hard at putting these videos together, so I appreciate all the help we can get. For those of you who haven't subscribed, don't forget and hit the bell so you get notifications of when our videos come out. It would be awesome to get some financial support. So for those of you who can, you can purchase support bits on our web store, which help us bring these videos to you. Thanks for watching. See you next time.